Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest is a hilarious stand-up comedian, actor, and generally awesome person, known best for his role as Mateo on the hit NBC comedy Superstore. Not only that, but this August, you'll be able to catch him as Oliver in the highly anticipated screen adaptation of Crazy Rich Asians, with Superstore recently confirmed for its 4th season, and this movie on everyone's must-watch list this summer. There is a lot to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Nico Santos is here. How about that? Make some noise for Nico. Ladies and gentlemen, keep it going. Nico Santos, man.
Hi.
Oh, man. First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. We're so excited that you're here. I love this show. I'm very excited to talk to you about it. Congratulations on everything.
Thanks.
We're going to get into all that in just a second. The beauty of Build, however, is that we got a couple of minutes, so I always love to start with, how are you? How are you doing?
I am doing great. I walked here.
No.
It was awesome. As opposed to taking the $40 Uber ride.
Really?
New York, what is up with your Uber prices?
Surge
it ain't
prices.
LA. Yeah, it ain't LA prices. I'll tell you that much.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
we'll have
it's
to work
expensive.
on that. So, but a beautiful day for a walk, though, is it not?
It's great. It's great.
That's perfect.
I put on a thick sweater because I thought it was gonna be cold. Not so much. Not so much. So.
It's a nice sweater, though.
Thank you. Just
Rocking
a little,
that sweater.
Just a little gooch. You know, a little gooch in the morning.
You pick up that brand you
little
just
gooch
dropped
in the
right there. Let me
morning.
pick that up.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you're used to LA, New York. You just got here a couple of days ago, though, right? It's always fun to be in New York. You come here.
I've been here since the 6th.
Since the 6th.
actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Done
I was
any
like,
New Yorky things. What have you been up to?
I saw SpongeBob. It was amazing.
You know how good it was? The audience gasped as well when you
Yeah,
said
it's so good.
so much fun.
So good.
I love
SpongeBob's-
SpongeBob.
Yeah, and I saw the first part of Angels last night.
Ooh.
Yeah, not as funny as
Different vibe.
different vibe.
Decidedly
SpongeBob.
different show than SpongeBob.
But it
Yeah.
was actually there were really funny parts in Angels, but it was we were just decimated at the end of it. I'm glad I'm seeing part 2 tonight, because if I saw it in one day, I would be like, let me just jump off a bridge, because it's really depressing.
Yeah, the use of the Rube Goldberg machine in Angels is different than how they employ it in SpongeBob.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm happy they're having a great time here and seeing a lot of great stuff and wearing your wonderful sweater. Let's get into this show. Speaking of wonderful things, man, congratulations again. Season 3 just wrapped up.
Yep.
Season 4 coming. We got the announcement. That's fantastic news. When Lauren was here, we talked a little bit about this. That season 3, season 4 area is where like good shows become great. It's where they really start to find their stride, hit their stride. The cast is like a real family and all that. How's it felt on set? You know, here we are. We're in season 3. What was it like putting this one together?
I mean, honestly, we kind of felt that vibe right away. Like, yeah, honestly, like when we filmed the pilot, I remember the first break room scene we filmed, and we were just it was the entire cast, and we were with everybody, and and then Mark and Lauren started improvising, and we were like, This is pretty cool. It's pretty special, and I think from that moment on too, like the producers sort of saw how well we gelled and how well we worked together, and they were like, "We're just gonna let this cast do their thing." So we do a lot of improv on the show. Yeah. I mean, we make sure that we have amazing writers, and they create great scripts. We make sure that they have the script to take, but then at the end of that, they're just like, "You guys just do your fun run." They call them fun runs.
You call it the fun run?
Yeah.
How comfortable were you with that environment, the improvisation and all that stuff? You know, you've done a bunch of comedy and whatnot, and here you're watching sort of these titans kind of go at it and do it. What was
not very comfortable. Not comfortable at all. Not comfortable at all. I'm used to my background's in stand-up, so I'm used to as a stand-up, you write your jokes, you go to the open mics, and you sharpen them until they're really ready to go. The whole concept of improv, like give me a place, is not what I'm strong at. But I felt like working on the set and with these amazing people, it's become sort of like a school, really. I mean, like Mark McKinney is like watching a master class in.
It's exactly what it is, right?
It's really.
Well, it's funny that you pointed out because it's true. I don't think a lot of people realize they group stand-up and improv together, but they're two very different disciplines.
Very different.
Very different. The beauty of stand-up is you get your rigid structure to the point where it looks like you're making it up on the spot, whereas in improv, you really are working on the fly and all that.
And improv, you have to rely on other people.
Yeah.
And stand-up is just you. So when it's going great, you're just like, I'm the king of the world! And then when you're bombing, you're just like, I should just shoot myself because I'm a worthless piece of crap. So.
That is the two very, yeah, it's peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
Peaks and valleys for sure. Have you, now 3 seasons in, going into season 4, have you worked on and developed that improv skill set, that tool set? Have you gotten more comfortable through the seasons now? How are you feeling better now?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like season 1, I look back at all the episodes of film, and now, and we also know the characters really well at this point. So it's very easy to sort of speak as Mateo and improvise as Mateo, as opposed to like first season. I'm kind of just like, who is this person I'm kind of playing? Yeah.
You know, another fun part about the show being where it is more people are finding it, more people are seeing it. Are you getting recognized more now when you go out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even here in New York, where I feel like people are kind of will just leave you alone. I mean, in LA, people are like cool, they don't bother you.
Right.
Because like all the celebrities are there. So so just like, oh, it's Brad Pitt, who cares? But here, I generally find New Yorkers are kind of also just cool, but like a doorman like ran out of his building yesterday, and it's like, are you that guy from Cloud 9? I'm like, the name of the show is Superstore, but yes. It's like, you're great, you're the best person in the show, and then like this other lady walking by was like, you are, he's telling the truth. I'm like, oh my God, thank you, New York.
It's always, I love that it's a community moment too.
Yeah.
People that aren't in that conversation will correct you and butt in on the way out the door just to make sure that that's him. That's definitely him.
That's definitely him.
Do you find it impossible? Do you ever I mean, you're human. You have to go to Target. You have to go to Walmart. You have to go to actual superstores. Is that where you get recognized the most? Do people run up? Do they see you there? Is that
they do, and whenever they recognize me at a Target or whatever, it's always just like, yeah. You doing research? It's like, no, I need toilet paper because I'm about to take a crap and I don't have toilet paper at home, so leave me alone.
Very, very honest. That's the only way out of that.
Yeah.
Did you work earlier in life? Did you work retail at all? I worked retail for years.
I worked retail. I worked bougie retail.
Oh.
So I worked retail for about 8 years in San Francisco.
Okay.
While I was doing stand up.
Yeah.
So I would like work. I worked at like Neiman's, at Jimmy Choo, at Bottega.
Not like Apple
Dior.
Store bougie, like bougie.
Yeah, like bougie.
Real
Like,
bougie.
oh, you want a handbag? That's $10,000.
Woo.
It's very expensive. Please leave. That kind of shit. Oh, can I say?
It's the internet. You can say anything.
Oh, I can say anything.
You can go nuts. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I worked at bougie retail in San Francisco, and I would like go to the open mics after my shift. So all these like straight boy comedians would be in their hoodies, and I would show up in like a suit.
Looking nice.
Like, who is this queen? I'm like, let me just do my joke for a second. Okay.
That's interesting. So then let me ask you this. Did that actually help you? I mean, because that's a different planet of retail.
Yes.
So when you come into this world, was any of that applicable? Any of the customer experience?
All
really?
of it. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're spending, like 99 cents on some dish soap or like $10,000 on a handbag. It's the same crazy people.
My bank account begs to differ.
But you get the
No,
same
I know what you mean,
people are
though.
just
The same
like
people going.
Yeah, the same sort of like neurosis that customers get. It's just it's the exact same thing. We have our regulars as well. We have the crazy regulars, and
do you remember? Do you remember any of the? Do you have a favorite crazy regular that used to come in, like somebody that just do something nuts, or just like they were crazy to work with?
I mean, one time when I worked at Dior, Paris Hilton came with her mom, and then she was trying something on and just dropped trow in the middle of the store. I'm like, girl, we got a dressing room just to your left. You better. I don't know.
Was that because sometimes when famous people will go to a store like that, they'll go early in the morning, they'll shut it down. Was this open business hours? She was just doing
open business hours. Yeah,
she can do whatever the hell she wants.
Yeah, I mean, like they wanted to be seen. It was just like the height of like the simple life or whatever. So I was like, whatever.
What a way to be seen.
Just be like, let me try on these pants. Right in the middle of the store. That's my Paris Hilton impression. It
was perfect. I was transported. I was like, where did Nico go?
Yeah. Actor. So.
Well done. Let's get into the actor side of it. I want to talk about Mateo for a second because you touched on this briefly. Like in season 1, you were still figuring out who is this person, what is this voice, and he, especially this season, so many fun things to watch happen between the relationship with Jeff, the worrying about people finding out that he's an immigrant, all these different things, these great layers that we didn't have in seasons prior. Talk about how that's built over the years and what that's been like for you as an actor.
It's when we first started the show, I mean, Mateo was kind of just like the bitchy employee, and he was really like, I mean, the way I really wanted to build the character was just like he, they had changed the character to turn him into a gay Filipino guy because Mateo was originally written as a straight Latino guy.
Really?
Yeah.
So they saw you and they were like, "That's the guy."
That's a straight Latino that we want. Yeah, he was originally, and I've talked about this before. In the pilot script, none of the parts had any specific ethnicities. I can't talk. Ethnicities attached to the roles. So America's part was not written as Latina. Colton's part was not written as Black, except for Mateo. Mateo was the only one that was specified. He was supposed to be of Latino descent and very, very just heterosexual. So butch. But I don't know. I mean, there was something about the words. I was like, I mean, he was kind of just like a shady queen character. So I was like, this is something a shady queen would say. So I just kind of interpreted it my own way, and they went for it, and then switched the character to a gay Filipino guy. But yeah, it started off as just somebody who was like super competitive, and then at one point, Justin Spitzer, the showrunner, was like, I think we're thinking about making Mateo undocumented, which I thought was just like such a genius move on his part, because it's such a, I don't know, like a lot of Filipinos are very familiar with that part. We're the second largest Asian minority here in the United States. A lot of every Filipino knows somebody who's undocumented. People from my family, I mean, at one point were undocumented. So yeah, it just sort of creates and turned Mateo into a much more well-rounded, whole human being.
But that's something I also love about this show, is that it's a silly, it's a comedy show, but it's also very smart, and it does tackle real social and political issues in a lot of interesting and different ways. And your character, at the end of the day, it's pretty groundbreaking when you think about it. A person of color, queer, immigrant on primetime television as a main character. Yeah. And you see a lot of that in social media, that it really resonates with a lot of people, and that means a lot to them. Did you expect that? Do you feel pressure from that? Do you feel responsibility from that as it's sort of grown and people have really, fallen in love with Mateo?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I try not to let the pressure of the whole thing, because I know the thing is kind of like bigger than me, right? So I'm trying not to let that pressure get to me. But yeah, it's I never really thought I would be in this position. One of the main reasons I got into stand-up is I knew that in stand-up I could just be myself. I didn't have to be anyone else. And as an actor, you hear these stories all the time about actors like, well, I can't reveal that I'm gay. I'm probably gonna have to be in the closet. And so for me, as somebody who is obviously I'm obviously gay. I'm not one of those gay guys who can pass as straight. I lean more towards on the femme side, so everybody knows I'm gay. It's not something I can hide. To be able to play this part on national television as somebody who is queer, somebody who's Filipino immigrant, somebody who's very close to what I am in real life, I never thought would be possible. And I've made my living off of it, and it's kind of crazy. I grew up a little girl in the Philippines hoping this would happen. It actually happened. So.
It's pretty amazing. And people, like I said, it's not just a character. It's not just that character is there on primetime. People love this character. It's a fantastic character. You've done an amazing job of fleshing him out and making him a real person that people connect to and love and want to hang out with. Speaking of entertainment also being culturally significant, you've got this huge movie that everybody's really excited about coming out later this summer. Crazy Rich Asians is coming out, based on the books, of course. And I was reading about there's the poster for it. I was
Henry and Constance. Just hideous people.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
Can't even.
Good Lord.
Constance,
just,
how amazing. Before we get into the deep stuff, how great is Constance, by the way, working with her? I love her.
Well, both of them,
I'm sure, are great.
Both of them are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, we're going to get into the cast in a second, but when I was doing some preliminary research, I was blown away by this. This film, is the first Western-produced film with an exclusively Asian cast in more than 25 years.
Joy Luck Club was
Joy Luck Club, yeah.
The last one. That was the last one they made.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So this film, in addition, the books are huge. People are excited just because this is a great story and people love these books and they're excited to see it. But specifically, within Asian Americans are calling this a historic moment. There's a lot of excitement around this movie. Did it feel when you were making it like a historic thing? Were you just making another? Okay, so talk about that. What did it feel?
It absolutely felt like it. I mean, I've been blessed and fortunate enough that Superstore is also one of the most diverse casts in television, and so usually when you book roles as a queer person, as a person of color, you're the token. Like it's so often I walk onto a set, I'm just like, I am the only one here who's gay, or I am the darkest person here. So I'm just used to feeling alone on set. But to walk on a set, I mean, like Superstore was great because there were people of color there.
Right.
But to walk on a set like Crazy Rich Asians, where not only were not everybody in front of the camera was Asian, but also a lot of the people behind the camera were. I was just like, oh my God, this is. It felt like a really huge moment, and we didn't have to explain ourselves to each other. We just got each other right away, and there was Asians from everywhere. There was, Asian American actors, Asian Australian actors, actors from Singapore and from China, from the Philippines, and it was kind of just really amazing to see like a global Asian community like working on one single project, knowing that how significant and what sort of cultural marker this was going to be. So it was really special.
It sounds like it was, man, for sure. In the trailer, it looks like it's going to be such a great movie. People are really excited to see this one.
It's a really fun rom-com.
Yeah, it looks.
And Hollywood has not made a really great
been a
rom-com
while.
in a while.
Yeah,
This is great. Yeah.
Did you guys filmed on location for this? You said you were.
Ooh, yeah, we went to Malaysia and Singapore. It was great. I was there for 6 weeks. I mean, I was there for 6 weeks. Constance and Henry were there for longer.
For longer, I'm sure.
But I was born and raised in the Philippines. I moved to Oregon when I was 16, and I hadn't been back to Asia in 21 years.
Wow, so this was your
first time back. So I went to Malaysia. We filmed in Kuala Lumpur, and then I had a break between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and so I was like, can I like go back to the Philippines and like go home? And they were like, yeah, just so I went home to the Philippines for the first time. And it was a really magical, emotional homecoming. Like I saw some family. I was reunited with my nanny who raised me from when I was like 6 months old till I left. And we had like a very emotional, tearful reunion at the mall in the Philippines. And people were just like, why are you guys crying? Like, leave us alone. We haven't seen each other in 21 years.
He's from Cloud 9.
Exactly. Perhaps you know me from Mall Cop 2.
What a triumphant way to return home, though, right? Like, because you're there working on this huge movie. You've got this successful show. You haven't been back since. It's this career that you've worked so hard for that's bringing you home. I can't even imagine.
It was really crazy because I mean I remember leaving like it was yesterday and just being so scared. Like I left when I was 16.
Yeah, 16.
I was like in the closet, and then when I came to the United States, like because I was in the closet, I was like eating everything in sight and stuffing down my feelings, and I gained like 100 pounds in a year. So I was like, it just ballooned. But yeah, and so to sort of like go from like this scared little kid trying to figure out what am I doing with my life. I'm moving to like an entirely different country, like to live with my father who I haven't seen. I didn't grow up with my dad, so it was just like, what are you doing? And trying to achieve the American dream, and it actually happened. And I get to go home and sort of like share that with my family and my friends there, and it was pretty amazing.
It is pretty, and to think, man, I also saw that apparently one of your actor teachers at one point told you it wasn't going to happen. Give up, kid.
Yeah.
Go home.
Yeah.
And don't you love that every interview you go to, somebody points that out and reminds you that it's some point.
I believe the phrase, the sentence, you may love the art, but the art doesn't love you, was used. I know. I'm just like,
harsh,
why you gotta shade me like that, professor? Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were like, I went to this small college in Southern Oregon, and they were just. But it was a really like sort of classically based program, and I was like, I figured out pretty early on. I was like, oh, I don't want to do Shakespeare or anything like that, but I love performing. So when he was like, you suck, you need to be a costume designer, and I was like, okay, I'll be a costume designer instead. And that kind of pivoted my path into like doing wardrobe and costumes, which then led me to do stand-up.
I was gonna say, how do you connect those dots, man? How do you go into costumes?
I was
alphabetically. Were you just like?
Yeah. So after I focused on costume design and majored in costume design, I ended up getting a job at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival doing wardrobe for them. And when I got there, it was the actors that I was in charge of taking care of, dressing and like fixing the costumes would be like, you're pretty funny. You should just try stand-up. And I was like, oh, people do that, huh? That's how I could perform without having to do Shakespeare. So I left that small town in Oregon and was like, I'm going to San Francisco. I'm going to be a stand-up comedian and be with the gays and be with the Asians.
You had a plan.
I had a plan. I had $200 in my pocket, and I moved to SF and just tried to make it happen. I also moved to LA, by the way, with the same situation where
Really?
I ran out of money in San Francisco, and I was like, I guess I'm done with SF. Let me try to make LA happen. Again, $200 in my pocket. I couch surfed for 2 years. It was a rough start. It was a really rough start.
Is the $200 thing? Is that like you had a X amount of money, but the second you got down to 200, you were like, well, this keg's tapped. Let's try another city. Yeah. I've got $200 left. That's all I need.
I've never been much of a planner. I never look before I leap. It's probably the best and worst thing about me because I'm just like, I'll figure it out. I'm a grown-ass man. Let me just figure this out. Let me go to LA. I know I have a couch to crash on, so let's just move and figure it out. And I feel like I wouldn't do that now, but when you're younger, you're stupid. Yeah. So I was just like, well, let's do this. And for 2 years, I couch surf. At one point, I was couch surfing with a friend of mine, and the apartment was like way out in the valley next to like a Carl's Jr. and a tire shop. I'm like, something has gone horribly wrong in my life that I'm here right now.
This is a weird neighborhood for me to be in.
Listen, it all worked out.
Man, worked out. Understatement of the year, dude. We got Superstore. All right, so season 3 just wrapped up, but you can watch all of it on Hulu if you missed any of it. And if you have missed it, go watch it. It's a ridiculously awesome season. Season 4 on the way. And then Crazy Rich Asians, August 17th this summer's coming out. We're going to turn it over to the audience for some Q&A. We got some questions, some mics out there. First one's going to be right here.
Hi, Nico.
Hi.
First of all, it's really great to see my culture. I'm also Filipino-American.
Kamusta?
Kamusta? Being represented every week. I look forward to seeing you every week. And I guess you guys talked about this a little bit right now. Like, where do you see this rise of Asian American representation in the media going in the future, let alone being Filipino American?
Well, I do hope that, for the longest time, we've all just been lumped together, right? And the Asian culture is so distinct from each other, the Koreans, the Japanese, and I feel like a lot of Asian culture, we're very segregated, right? The Koreans and the Japanese, the Chinese, the Filipinos, they're very, very distinct cultures. So I'm really hoping that, this movie is great, and we get to see one side of Asian representation. But I hope in the future that we do get to tell more specific stories and that people realize and Hollywood realizes that there is money to be made in a very specific artistic story. It doesn't have to be just a blanket Asian movie. We can tell a Filipino story, a Vietnamese story, a Chinese story, and that we just get to sort of represent ourselves in our most authentic way. I think people, no offense, but people are tired of seeing stories about white people.
No, we all are.
Can we get some brown and black people up in here and tell our stories, please? So. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you think in a time where we have platforms like Netflix and all that stuff, does Hollywood need to recognize it as much as it needed to or we wanted it to years ago? Are we at a point where the people can recognize it and demand it and say, this is the stuff we want to see? And you can, do we need it to be a big movie? Is there enough opportunity to take over globally? Do you know what I mean? Or is there a significance to it being a Hollywood movie that we want to have that?
Well, I think we just need to do it on all fronts, right?
All fronts.
Like Hollywood or like small independent projects. But the real change I think will happen. Like the people can demand it as much as they want, but it's the people behind the scenes that we really need to diversify, right? As long as it's like old white cisgender straight men running that shit, it's just like nothing's gonna change. So there is sort of like a wave of change in Hollywood happening right now. There are a lot more women running things, a lot more people of color running things. So once a lot of those that diversity happens behind the scenes, then all these stories will get greenlit, and people will realize it's like, oh hey, Crazy Rich Asians, Black Panther can make all of that money.
Yeah, biggest movie in the world, right? Fantastic. All right, thank you so much for that question. We've got a few more coming. The next one is all the way in the back.
Hey, Nico.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. With Crazy Rich Asians becoming a movie, was it hard to trying to keep the integrity of the book while at the same time trying to make like a really entertaining film?
Well, I mean, my only focus on the film was to sort of really focus on Oliver. I mean, I'm just a lowly actor, so I have no control over what the script is going to be like, and also, so I really wanted to stay true to Oliver in the book. So I wanted to make sure that happened. So I actually like went to like a dialect coach and like I have a British accent in the movie, which hopefully turned out really well. We'll see. I mean, I think it holds up, but it was a really fun opportunity for me to sort of like play another queer character that is very different because people just know me as Mateo. But yes, I wanted to make sure that I was true to Oliver's character because that was the only thing I had control over. But I think people who really love the book are really gonna love this movie. Of course, there's been changes made. The book is massive. We've had to make some combine some things, make some cuts. Aquafina's character Picklin is a little different from the movie than it is in the book, but it all works really, really well. It's a really entertaining film, and I don't know, it has a lot of heart and has a lot of love in it. So I can't wait for people to see it.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. We've got time, looks like, for one more, and it's coming right here.
Hi. So we're going to take a question from an online viewer. Okay. Melissa wants to know if you can tell us anything about your character Mateo and Jeff's relationship.
Well, I mean, in the finale, he betrayed us and got his job back. I know, right? Ugh. I mean, I said Mateo wouldn't even stoop that low. Yeah. Maybe he would, but, So I actually have no idea what's going to happen. It's in the finale, he gets offered his position back, but in Chicago. So I don't know if we're gonna do like a long distance thing and try to make it work, or I don't know. Like we still have to address Mateo's undocumented status. So I hope that gets resolved in this next season. But your guess is as good as mine. They keep me in the dark. I have no idea what's gonna happen. So.
Thank you so much for that. Nico, we're just about out of time. I got to let you go, man. But before we do, I do want to thank everyone again for their questions. And I want to remind the whole world, Superstore is on Hulu right now, all the seasons. So you got to go check it out if you haven't watched it already. Keep an eye out for season 4. And August, I wrote it down, 17th, August 17th. Do not miss it. I know you won't. Crazy Rich Asians is coming. And it's going to be a fantastic film. Everybody put your hands together. This was so wonderful. I hope you had fun. Nico Santos, everybody.
Thank you.